Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the presenters for the wonderful presentations. I have three questions in total for all of the presenters here today. So my first question is, how are you engaging youth and early career professionals to build the skills and leadership needed to sustain these efforts into the future? That's question number one. My question number two is, from your experience, what entry points within your activities, for example, data use or core development, outreach, or regional implementation, are most effective for meaningfully involving youth beyond just training or internships? Then my last question is, what concrete steps or pathways would you recommend for youth and early career professionals who want to gain hands-on experience using Earth observations to support real-world applications in the disaster risk reduction, climate, biodiversity space? So these are my questions to all the speakers today.
Thank you, Levin. Three important questions from our youth community. So who want to respond first? We probably can follow the order of presentation. Neil, are you ready?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Look, great
Yeah.
questions. Thanks so much, Letwin. Look, the youth engagement is such an important part of the GeoLDN work. And I know in Geo, throughout Geo as well, there has been, the youth caucus and other things as well. So a strong focus in that sector. For land degradation, as I said, we're talking about, we have this youth forum in there. We've got a very strong focus on increasing the capacity and knowledge base amongst young people. A lot of our work is based in Africa. Amos Kababa, who's one of my co-chairs, is from Ghana, and establishing courses of study and things like this to build people up. But you're right, a course of study isn't enough, and actually, the entry points to connect to something like Geo, which really does bring together, a real issue on the land and this kind of technology. There, it takes a lot of energy to do that. In GeoLDN, we are aware of the importance of keeping that connection open and drawing on the community of people who are interested in finding out more about GeoLDN to help with many processes. It takes a lot of energy, and it's something that has worked really well on a couple of occasions, but there's definitely more to do there as well. I think in terms of pathways, Earth observation is going to get more and more important. All of these challenges that we're facing globally, they're not seeming to get any better. And so the use of geospatial data, bringing in more awareness of locations and impacts and solutions, is something really important. And so in terms of concrete pathways, learn more about geospatial data, learn how it works and what it is. In many For years and years and years, we've had this challenge in geospatial data where non-experts think it can do absolutely everything or nothing at all. And actually the answer is somewhere in between. And it's our duty as EO professionals to know where the applications are most suitable and to understand the sensitivity and the errors, and to be able to report that accurately and promote the use of these data sets, which really give us a perspective that's like nothing else. And so that's something where I think that the young people can really start to be advocates for the use of this information in their local communities and for their challenges. I know I've spoken a lot, but one of the dialogue forums we had was about, for example, storytelling through data. How do people tell a story? And James, man, your answers to these questions have been absolutely beautiful, and James and I've had the pleasure of working with James a little bit in the past, and it's always very encouraging. But that story that this one person told me was, if they can tell a story about the data, it gets people to buy into the data. If they can tell a story about a place, people are more willing to understand a map. right? So that connection there between place and the data is really critical, and that's something like that young people can be really good at now. Thanks for your time letting me answer this one.
Thank you, Neil. Klaus?
Well, on chia trees, we don't have a specific use activity or use program, but I have to say we are a grassroots initiative. So whoever volunteers to help is very welcome. We have, for example, established 3 technical implementation teams. So we have these 3 pillars, one measuring laser scanning from airborne, one from ground, one from forest sensors. And these groups are, for example, led by young postdocs and are staffed by volunteers who are mainly coming from the youth community. But of course, this is all voluntary working. So it's on you. So there's also, I think, a certain responsibility by young people to get engaged, to get in touch with us and to ask how can, or if they're interested, how can they help us and support us, and we provide all the tools you need. We have platforms to do your computing, so you don't need any sophisticated computing resources. We provide the data, we provide training. We also support people coming with their own ideas, with financial support to support them for 6 months or longer periods to do their research program. But there's no specific, it's not targeted specifically at young people. It's basically, we are looking for the initiative of these young people to support us, and then we can arrange something.
Thank you, Klaus. Qinghua?
Yes, I just want to give some example for the GeoArc. So the one sector of the GeoArc has a
There is a network problem. I think we can come back to Qinghua later on. Yvonne?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I'm a youth myself, so this is very applicable to me as well. So at Digital Earth Africa, we're all about diversity and inclusion, and youth is an integral part of that. So through our capacity development team, we're able to go to universities from the undergraduate level, masters and PhD, not only introduce the Digital Earth Africa program, but also support in any of the studies that are happening that do require assistance with Earth observation data. And sometimes we are embedding ourselves into coursework at these universities. But also, if you want to take steps as an individual to get started with with Earth observation, I think Digital Earth Africa is the perfect place for you to get started, because very simple entry into Earth observation. We are open, we are free, we have a dedicated capacity development team, but also a science team that is always willing to assist. So you can come to us either with a use case that we can help you develop, or you want assistance with your master's or a PhD, or you want to intern with us, although we probably won't be able to pay you because we don't make any money, but we would be able to at least give you hands-on experience in learning all that we do at Digital Earth Africa and leveraging the power of the data cube. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I put in the chat something called Guardians, Land Guardians programs. And if you know, I think the four countries with the largest indigenous populations are America, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And there's been a movement to do something called Land Guardians for young people, is to recruit, train, develop, and support young people to be on the land, to get them on the land, get them in the water, and actually have a role and responsibility to take care of the land based on those individual indigenous traditions and heritages. I think one of the solutions is to come alongside or align with existing ongoing indigenous initiatives, and to work with them and respect them in a way that they can, if EO can enhance their program, so be it. If it doesn't, that's okay. But I think that there's this time and period now where we need to think about those partnerships in another way. Also, I want to put it in the chat something called WinHEC. WinHEC is the World Indigenous Higher Education Consortium, and they represent all the indigenous higher ed institutions around the world. And my one of my mentors from the Rosebud Sioux tribe was one of the co-founders with a co-founder from New Zealand. And I think, what I think that the GEO community should do is really invest in WinHEC and these indigenous institutions and to find ways to not only partner with them, but also support them and raise awareness. So I think one thing that we can all do is raise awareness and visibility of this opportunity working with indigenous youth. So as we go forward, I think that's important. And so I just want to say that. It's a good question, though. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, James. So now back to Jinhua. Are you ready? One solution is you may mute your video and use audio only. Let's wait for several seconds. If not, Sabrina. So let's turn to Sabrina first.
Hello. Thank you so much for your responses to the earlier questions. I have a question specifically for Info, following up on what you said. I was wondering if you could share an example of some of the use cases that you were speaking about, where someone comes to DE Africa for support with tools or platforms for their use case. Thank you.
Yeah, if only I had more time in the presentation, I would have had time to include these examples. But use cases are a very central part to what we do. Like I said, when I presented the notebook repository and I said we have over 160 notebooks, probably 80% of those come from user requests. They're not notebooks that we created because we want to. For instance, right now, I'm working on a use case request specifically for wetlands. Trying to characterize wetlands in an area in South Africa. So that's one example. Last year, I worked on one where we were mapping floating, what do you call it? Ocean debris, which was something that we'd never done before. So we have all these kind of requests that we keep getting in. We highlight them not only on our website, but if you go into our sandbox when you sign in, a lot of them are already loaded in as notebooks that you can use, change the location, change the time, and you'll be able to run that same analysis anywhere on the continent. So unfortunately, I don't have any of them ready, but trust me, there's a lot that we do for the users in terms of use cases.
Thank you, Mafong. So time flies. It's time for wrap up. We really had a very insightful discussion and interesting. And thank you for all your questions and responses. Now I'd like to invite Evangelist for closing remark. Evangelist?
Thank you, Kenzuo. It seems I have been doing much of the talking today, so apologies for this, but I have to wrap the meeting up. So thank you, everybody, especially our excellent presenters and contributors for today's discussion, and I hope it has been very fruitful for everyone. So today, I think with the selection of the different activities, we got a very good and clear picture of how the different parts of the new and fresh work program is going to be pursuing Earth intelligence and specific nexi, like the one we have been talking about, the RR climate and biodiversity. So if I were to identify some key takeaways or commonalities, etc., that would be, first of all, that most of the activities have been based on very well-established challenges, and they have been starting from some scientific challenges that invoke real needs down in practice for both global and local decisions to be made. And I think this motto of global think, local action, and vice versa is something that GEO can really plays an important role in. And today's presentations were a great proof around this. Then the other thing that I realized is that there is very concrete engagement, and concrete engagement is behind success. And there were different types of engagement, from the national level to even more local communities or indigenous people doing the actual job done on the ground. And I think we need a thorough study of those different types of engagement and try to see how they fit in other activities and how we can really push success in this aspect, because as you remember, it's one of the criteria for activities to evolve within the research to operation pipeline. Then, because we are talking about Nexi, I realized that there are some aspects of Nexus that are addressed partly within the different activities, but also it was very obvious to me there is very much space for discussion between the activities in order to work more closely on this Nexus. And I think it has been quite an inspired move to work, around these focus areas in the new work program, because it provides for some first, let's say, platform of discussions around the Nexi, and also identify more, let's say, opportunities also across the focus areas. With respect to technologies, I think we are getting there. We heard many good examples for AI integration, for the utilization of sensors, of LiDARs here and there. I would kind of miss the integration of socioeconomic data. Maybe it's not, the most appropriate, let's say, activities that should go for that. But I think there are always opportunities. And this, for me, it's an inherent part to achieve Earth intelligence, to merge with the socioeconomic data. So all in all, and finishing, I would say that we are targeting for transformative programs. And I think from today's discussion, the best way to understand the power of overlooking, let's say, the planet through Earth observation seems to be to deeply comprehend the view angle of each individual resident or community on this planet. And I think because the technologies are coming more and more available and accessible, I think this is the thing, the element that would lead us closer and faster to Earth intelligence. So I would like to close with this, and we can proceed with next one. Yes, of course. So many words of appreciation, and we can also use the chat and clapping to express our appreciation to our presenters: Neil Sims from GLDN, Klaus Schippel from GeoTrees, Quinho Liu from GeoWork, M4 Sadiki from Digital Earth Africa, James Ratting-Lee from GeoIndigenous Alliance, always inspiring us, and of course the coordinators behind, the co-organizers, and starting with Jen Shuo Jia, the co-chair of the RRA, and colleagues from the GEO Secretariat, and of course, special thanks to Rui Kotani, which I know very well has been a silent contributor and push for all this effort. So next, please. There is also already organization, the thoughts for the third open house webinar. It's probably going to be around the One Health topic, and it is planned for some time after the GEO Symposium in May. By the way, we expect all of you to be there in May and continue the discussions we're having in the open house seminars. More details will be soon announced. The recordings will be available. So especially for the presenters, we have to create some blogs, which reminds me now that I also have to do something similar. But please be active on this, because this is one of our greatest means to influence the work and achieve impact, to make visible all the work, all the great work that is being happening in GEO. And of course, for the lovers of social media, use the hashtag Earth Intelligence for All. You can see and spread the word around GEO.